Greetings, brave adventurers! FoxyBard here, and I've got quite a story for you today. Less of the wonder, lots of the woe. Now, for this story, I do have to preface with a trigger warning. This story contains accounts of abuse and threats of violence, so if that's not something you are comfortable hearing, please do turn off the video and find a different one to watch. I don't want to inadvertently hurt anyone. This story was submitted by a user on my Discord server, which, yes, that's a thing now. You can find it in the video description below, and I do hope you join us. We're pretty active and very friendly, and I would love to have you. But without further ado, let's get into the story proper. Today, we have a group that was probably doomed from the start, a that guy who was actually a that girl, and several destroyed personal relationships. So grab yourself a seat around the fire, and we'll dive right in. In my freshman year of high school, I joined a 3.5 edition D&D group that collapsed almost immediately in a story not relevant to anything in this story, except for that's how I met the group that damn near got me out of tabletop gaming as a whole. This new group that formed consisted of me and two other members. We'll call them Lord GM and X. This group started off low quality. There was no system or board, we just described what we wanted to do and roll a d8 to decide how well it went. Around 2 or 3 campaigns went by without incident, save for the Lord GM being extremely excited to call me a fool whenever I did something even slightly out of the ordinary, cringeworthy, or edgy. I was 14, there was plenty of edge to go around. As well as the same GM having a massive love of GMPCs. Understandable given the lack of actual player characters. Before I got in a relationship with X, which was when I really should have realized I'd be better off anywhere but here. X was not the kind of person you want to be in a relationship with. She claimed to be polyamorous, but would often ignore me for her other boyfriend. When she did give me attention, it would range from sweet, but not quite affectionate, to downright violent, until one day a mutual acquaintance of ours falsely accused me of telling him to off himself. My ex sided with him and cut all ties with me, killing the group for almost a year. The Lord GM wasn't willing to run for just one of us. As a quick aside, by violent, I mean once she tried to punch me in the crotch, and when I raised my knee as defense and she hurt herself, she tried to blame me for it. So, far from ideal. That gets an official yikes from Foxy. Eventually, I came crawling back. I had no other social ties really in this school. I was desperate for D&D. We made up and started doing our D&D again, but things were worse. This new wave included a few major incidents with both her and the Lord GM. First, there was the time a campaign we played completely died because X didn't want to use one of the abilities she had. This campaign took place in a complicated setting, which I'll do my best to recall real quick. Our characters were anthropomorphic woodland creatures from a village of entirely anthropomorphic woodland creatures in a world shrouded in eternal darkness. Our village was kept lit and warm by a literal angel's eye. One day, 2 strange people, humans, came to the village and, while monsters attacked, these 2 shady characters took the angel's eye and made off, leaving the village in darkness. Our player characters were the only ones trusted, or in my case, hated due to my cowardice causing a child's death, enough to go out and try to get it back, without being crucial to keeping the other animals alive. Along our journey, we met a vampire queen in an icy castle, pillaged an ancient battlefield, and met steampunk Nazis, minus the ethnic cleansing, but still yikes, who gave my porcupine girl an anti-tank rifle and cybernetic enhancements in exchange for letting them study her. Eventually, we made it to the final stretch. 4 islands, each ruled by an elemental dragon. This is where the story picks back up. I don't know, minus the Nazis, that actually sounds kinda awesome. We were in the first of the 4 dragon fights. My character had already lost her only pretty specialized source of repairs for her mechanized limbs, but had taken most of the dragon we were facing's hit points out through her anti-tank rifle. It was X's turn. She tried to use a spell, and was informed it wouldn't be able to finish off the boss unless her character used a special magical ability of hers to channel some of her youth into powering up the spell. What is going on in this campaign? This would have made a great dramatic moment where the dragon would be slain, but at a cost, probably causing her to be more careful, but instead she threw a tantrum about it. She didn't want to lose anything to kill a mother-foxing dragon. That would have finished my character off in the next turn if she didn't. Her refusal to compromise in the slightest killed that game then and there, especially since this wasn't a campaign where player characters were disposable. Second was the time I tried to GM for a change. My family got me the Pathfinder Beginner box as a birthday gift, and I was stoked to try it with X and her other boyfriend. The Lord GM wasn't around at this time. If I recall correctly, he was busy with work. To those who haven't played 1st edition Pathfinder, it is not a system for pacifists. If anything, it's a murder hobo's paradise. X, in her infinite wisdom, wanted to play a pacifist. Having no knowledge or experience GMing, no practice, and being taken so far off the course of the beginner box, things naturally went poorly. She got angry when she rolled a natural 20 to intimidate one of the enemies, only for it to submit and join her, because I thought it would be a cool encounter. The final stretch of the box came up where they had to fight a young black dragon, I forgot how young, and because I wouldn't let her undertale her way out of the fight, she threw a tantrum, and we eventually played something else. Next, there was the Lord GM's worst campaign. This was a post-apocalyptic game with an actual system, made from the ground up. Oh no. This GM never used existing systems. Oh no. It always had to be his own original creation. Oh no. I chose to start as a character with a firearm, thinking, oh, that would be cool, so I asked how much ammo I would start with. The Lord GM, in his infinite wisdom, told me that I'd have to buy starting ammo. This for a character whose primary method of attack is a gun, and is 98% built around said gun. I wasn't happy with this, but was told to suck it up or write a new character. Character creation in the system was a pain in the butt, and I didn't want to start over, so eventually I left that game. X called me a whiny baby over it, an insult that would sting more in the next game, and the beginning of the end. The next story is the absolute worst. It's the textbook example of a GMPC run rampant. In this game, we were each a spellcaster of some form. I was a Kitsune Necromancer. I forgot what everyone else was, but the GM had a GMPC who was a lawful, stupid paladin, with a particular visceral hatred for necromancy. In Session 1, the paladin did the following. Destroyed my own necromancer's undead that she raised, and threatened to kill her, until eventually I convinced him to let me have undead if I'd destroy them after the dungeon. Constantly did things in a way that made it so I couldn't get more undead to help when undead were a necromancer's whole thing, especially in this homebrew system. Oh no, not again. When we finally beat the enemy necromancer at the end of the dungeon, my necromancer tried to claim his spellbook to study. The Lord GM's paladin, of course, had nothing of it and burned the book. At this, I had it. I went off on the GM for actively making a GMPC that foxed me over, and not just telling me, you shouldn't run a necromancer. His excuse? Well, the GMPC is supposed to die anyways. I left, This is when my relationship with X broke down completely. She called me a foxing slimeball and blocked me. I wish this was the end, but this leads directly into the final story and GM's absolute worst moment. A little while after that last game, Lord GM invited me to a new, better game, and I, in my infinite wisdom, decided I had nothing better to do and joined, on the condition X wouldn't be in the same game as well. Lord GM agreed, knowing I wanted nothing to do with her ever again after all the abuse, tantrums, and general terrible behavior. So this new game went surprisingly well for a while. The specifics don't matter, but it took place in a bootleg Hogwarts, and I was playing a bootleg Seto Kaiba, who was hired by basically the Illuminati to try and study the school. Again, what is going on in this campaign? My character didn't believe in magic, and tried to explain everything with science, a belief that really quickly crumbled. In the end, Lord GM decided the game wasn't worth it, I guess, because he added X to it. I reminded him, very bluntly, I won't play in a game with her. It's her or me. He told me I was being childish, and a bunch of other very gaslighty things, and I lost it, left the group, and basically cut contact. At the least, the story has a happy ending for me. I now live with a much better boyfriend, and have been working on getting back into tabletops. Wow, this group sounds like a lot of words that would get me demonetized before I even get monetized. From the DM refusing to use any established systems and making his own badly, to the abusive X, to purposely undermining the characters, to the gaslighting, I think that getting out was absolutely the right choice. Even if there is more to the story that we don't know, just leaving was the right call. What makes it even more frustrating is that a lot of these campaigns sounded like great, crazy, fun ideas, just not done in a good way. If you steal any of those ideas and run a really good campaign with them, please do let me know. I want to hear those stories too. But that brings us to the end of our tales for the day. Thanks for sticking with me and listening in. It's now time for me to ask for your help in defeating the algorithm monster. So bring out your likes, your comments, and your subscribes. Share the video around, and perhaps someday we can be victorious. All that said, if you look down in the video description, you can find the FoxyBard Discord server. Come on in and join us in the Fox Den. For now, though, let's douse the fire and get back to our own adventures.